Welcome to the School Leaders Podcast. My name is Dr. Gastred Harrigan, the podcast for current and emerging school leaders, those who support and supervise them. You will hear from passionate educational leaders who are transforming their schools, communities, and creating positive outcomes for students. I will also share my personal reflections and tips from over 15 years as a school leader. Together, we will talk about how to level up our schools and leadership practices. Hello, welcome to the School Leaders Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Gastred Harrigan. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to encourage all of our listeners to join the School Leaders Podcast community on Facebook. There, we continue and extend our conversation from the episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you could be notified whenever a new episode is released. Today, I have a special guest, Miss Osas. She is a STEM teacher. As a current programmer and engineer, she has been instrumental in scaling up her school's STEM and computer science initiatives. She has exposed students to building computers, coding, programming, and digital tools. She has quarterly hackathon where students demonstrate their coding skills and compete with each other. Under her leadership, students have successfully completed the Microsoft certification in HTML and CSS programming, web design, and Microsoft Office. Ms. Osas has spearheaded a STEM club that meets biweekly to further expose students to programming and computer science field. She has garnered various businesses as partners to support the STEM initiative at her school, such as Oracle, TechGate, and many more. Ms. Osas was also the 2021-2022 Teacher of the Year for her school. Join me in welcoming Ms. Osas to the School Leaders Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Harrigan, for that amazing introduction. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I was looking forward to really talking to you today because you are doing such an amazing job as a STEM teacher, as a computer science teacher. I just wanted to make sure to bring you on, and partly to all my leaders and emerging leaders that are listening. The why I want her on is because I think there are ideas, things she's doing that can benefit you as a leader to scale up or start a STEM program at your school. Ms. Osas, share with our listeners some of the lessons you have learned as a STEM teacher, teaching coding, digital tools, and doing hackathons every quarter.
So I would like to start off by saying I strongly believe that great technology should empower people. And this stems from the fact that I grew up in Nigeria with very little exposure to computers, technology, really in the classroom and at home. So that experience has fueled my passion to exposing myself and acquiring as much knowledge when it comes to computing and technology.
That is awesome. It's interesting you say that growing up in Nigeria. I grew up in the islands, and yes, some of the things is I wish in the islands. I know things have changed a bit over these 40 plus years leaving the islands, but not having exposure to computers and digital tools. Why do you think growing up in Nigeria and not having those access have allowed you to not only be a great STEM teacher, but being able to work with students to really spark their curiosity in STEM and careers?
Okay, so I was very terrified in engineering school. I went to FIU, I studied computer engineering, and I just remember being intimidated. I remember feeling overwhelmed. And going through that process and pouring myself into learning as much as I could, and of course, collaborating with other students and professors, I felt empowered. And I thought to myself, so feeling empowered it was an experience that I felt every minority and African American child should feel. And the only way to feel that empowered is by exposure, by knowledge and experience. So my goal for the past few years has been, how can I not just teach but replicate that experience or that journey that I went through, um, from Nigeria to very little exposure to getting some exposure and to getting, really a lot more exposure and resources being in United States. So my passion so far has just been about not just teaching but mentorship and really empowering young boys and young girls.
I think you bring up a valid point because oftentimes minority students often do not get exposed to the STEM field. I was lucky since I was young. I knew I wanted to be an engineer, even in the islands, but I didn't have exposure. And I think it's very important that we use the word empowered. And you are spot on. We need to empower, and you also use the word exposure. We need to expose all kids, but definitely minority kids. So why do you think it's important to expose girls? We need more girls or women in general in the STEM world, but also minority students. Why do you think it's important that schools and school leaders do that?
I think self empowerment is important in not just minorities, with anyone, with any child or even adults. I felt unempowered because of my lack of exposure and lack of knowledge. So empowerment is necessary to create a better, healthier generation. Because they're gonna have to compete with the real world. They're competing with other other ethnic groups that possibly have had those exposures, and to almost eradicate intimidation, to eradicate feeling um, less 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 sufficient. So empowerment is very important with any child, or really the next generation. We need to get as much people empowered to create passion and just to create a healthy experience.
And that's key to create a healthy experience. Is important, is vital, and we gotta we have to find ways to expose more students to the STEM. And earlier you spoke about the global competition, and yes, some of the other countries are beating us when it comes to um, engineering, when it comes to STEM. Because I
Yes.
remember you went to FIU, I went to FAU. But I remember in my programs, we didn't see a lot of minority students, and the handful we saw were mainly from outside of the U.S. So I think it becomes critical to all the school leaders, emerging leaders, and even just teachers who are in the classroom that we continue to expose all students, but we continue to expose minority students and girls, making sure that we are able to compete as a global marketplace. We're able to compete at the global level, but it really start local in the classroom, in the schools, making that initiative, making that a significant initiative at each school level. For school leaders and principals looking, Ms. Osas, to start or maybe scale up their STEM program, share your top strategies they can use to implement and start today.
The understanding the why. Why is it important to have STEM, or to introduce or expose them um, into schools, right? Technology is the future. Technology is now. Technology is everywhere we are. So, and also, I believe technology actually builds bridges um, cultural differences. It brings different ethnic groups together. So just understanding the importance of why STEM, why should we expose STEM to our students, The second point I had was just identifying your school's specific STEM mission. So for me, my why was I was passionate about empowering students to almost replicate the knowledge that I have on their level. And I had to identify my school, Cypress Run Education Center, and understand what was their specific STEM mission, what was the goal, right? And my third point I have is to integrate STEM to work for your curriculum. That was one of the challenges I think I faced my first year teaching computer science, was finding different curriculums that can work for that specific subject area or the specific goal that I wanted. So I had to almost pool different resources together to have one curriculum, which is time consuming. But yeah, so integrating STEM to work with your curriculum would be a very important strategy. You can either buy a curriculum. There's so many options for that to make it easy and less time consuming for teachers, for STEM teachers. My fourth point would be no age requirement for STEM. There's no restriction. If you can dream it, if you can think it, you can build it or try it. So for me, just not having any restrictions when it comes to what students should we impact when it comes to, or empower when it comes to STEM programs. My fifth step will be to enhance STEM programs with proper technology, right? So the right softwares, the right PD trainings, the right computers, memory, and so on and so forth. So just having proper technology to teach and explore all the various STEM applications that we have available to us. And yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing these five strategies, school leaders. Know your why. Why you want to start a STEM program. Identify your school mission. What is the mission? I love that one. What as a school leader, what is your mission? What are you trying to accomplish with STEM? And you talked about integrating STEM into different curriculum. You could do school-wide projects. You could embed it into ELA. You could embed it into various projects that can incorporate. Let's say you're designing a website. You could have the ELA teachers work on the content, the actual writing of it, and then they bring it to the STEM classroom where they learn the technical skills. And you said no age limits. And I think that's important. I would also say no GPAs, right? Every kid can be exposed to STEM. It shouldn't just be for the higher level kids. It shouldn't just be for a certain age, as you indicated. To all my leaders, it really should be, as Miss Osa says, to everyone. And you said the last thing you said is to enhance it with the proper technology. So I'm assuming that you're referring to making sure school leaders get the technology, the software that is needed to make sure to make sure they are able to scale things up, or that STEM teacher has what is needed to do so. So let me ask you this. You in your last point you said to enhance it with STEM program. So share some of the ways principals or even teachers could find funding and partnership for their STEM program, because if they're going to enhance it, they're going to need some funding.
right. To even get to the point where you are now um, being specific with what programs and fundings you would need, I think it's very important to capitalize on the second strategy, which is understanding your school's mission or the vision, the STEM vision. So I think once I understood the STEM vision, that kind of carried me along my journey, starting with my first year teaching computer science. So the journey was being fueled by the vision, by the mission. And one of the missions was not just to teach and expose them, but to um, create, you know, awareness with to merge partners with what we're doing in the classroom. I did that with coding competitions, hackathons, challenges with code.org, and so on. Also, industry certifications, right? Getting at that my first year, I wasn't even thinking industry certifications, just some form of certification to empower them, to encourage them, to motivate them. So all of that fueled me to where I'm at now, which is most of my kids, or a good amount of my kids, are being certified with industry certifications under Microsoft. They are participating in hackathons, coding competitions, and my last hackathon, one of our partners actually said, I might have a job for you. So I think understanding your school's STEM vision first, that should help with guiding or leading you through that journey of the goal or the mission. So some of the you talked about grants or funding. So for me, I think collaboration with teachers and partners, potential partners, is very important. STEM teachers will have to take time to collaborate, maybe through workshops. Broward County offers, STEM workshops that you can meet with other STEM teachers and collaborate with them and gain insight on funding and partnerships and just ideas. Also working with your administration, with grants, explaining what your needs are, understanding what your needs are.
You just said so much because oftentimes we don't value, which is you do a great job at bringing in partners. As you indicated at the last hackathon, the partner said, I may have a job for you. And imagine this a high school student, not only getting certification, but at the high school level, getting offers to begin and then to begin their really programming STEM career. And it's interesting because of the amazing work you're doing because students at the high school level are being exposed or are getting industry certification, which people have to go to college and go to different schools to get these industry certification, and yet your students are able not only be exposed but also getting those industry certification which they can walk right into a career. You also just brought up, and I know that yes, to get funding, to a lot of our leaders thinking, well, how do I get this thing going? Yes, it will require some funding, and there are tons of grants out there. I know that one of the grants that you got through collaborating is you got a $50,000 Next Era FPNL grant that is allowing you to really redo, make over, get your technology. Talk to us about that $50,000 FPNL Next Era grant.
Okay. Yeah, it was a amazing experience just being able to collaborate with, administration and us mapping out how to implement that grant. And just the design process and the creative process as well was very exciting to me, to have the opportunity to actually design a brand new computer lab and think about how it will impact the students and motivate them and what that experience would look like, when it comes to technology. So it was an awesome experience. Now to see it materialize and actually, um, you know, come into reality has been amazing. The classroom has been completely turned around. New furnitures, new desks, new chairs, new computers, upgraded computers, modern computers. For me, it's I think it's actually increased my passion, even though the passion is there. But it's definitely it's been very exciting to go through the process. The kids are extremely excited. They're extremely passionate about just getting into the classroom, and it has impacted learning. It's created a space. It's created a modern space, but an exciting space, right? So I think space matters when it comes to learning. Every little thing impacts the learning process. So it's been awesome to have that opportunity. I'm looking forward to sharing more into details as I carry on my observation on how it will increase and enhance the learning process when it comes to computing and technology in the classroom. So I'll have more update for you in the near future.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know you guys got that grant last year, and now you're in the implementation phase. So definitely, we'll bring you back and on the podcast to really share some how things are going. Especially now, you have updated you mentioned updated laptops, updated technology, new desks, redesigned desks, really that are more modernized. So that's kudos to you and your team, streamlining, collaborating, and really getting this type of grant. For teachers, now let's move and think about teachers now. For teachers like yourself who are looking to either expand or they would like to become a STEM teacher, share what they can do to start a STEM program at their school.
Make sure you're passionate about what you're doing, right? So I remember when I was in pharmacy school, I was pursuing pharmacy for a few years. I started off pursuing pharmacy, and I actually got into pharmacy school my first year. I was miserable, I was depressed, and my dad told me you would find your success when you start pursuing your passion. So I would say if you want results and if you want longevity, consistency, make sure you're passionate about STEM, specifically technology and computing and coding and all that comes with STEM. So make sure you're passionate about it because I think once the passion is there, you're a lot more open to learning, collaboration, accent, connecting, and you have more consistency once the passion is there. So I would start by making sure you're passionate. Two, speak with your principal, assistant principal, and get the specifics on the STEM mission or your STEM vision for your school. Once those two are established, then it's just a matter of just going through the process. CTAKE, they are with Broward County, so I would recommend CTAKE and just finding who's appointed for your school and just connecting with them. They would share great resources for when it comes to certifications and students taking exams for free and getting these industry certifications through Microsoft.
You mentioned CTAKes, and for a lot of our listeners who may not know what CTAKes is the district, I believe, the district science and engineering department that it's also for careers for internships that provide resources and PD for teachers and for all of our listeners across the U.S. and Canada. And thank you for all my Canadian and UK listeners. What matters is finding out what are the resources that exist, as Miss Osas was saying, in your district, in your school, and then connecting with those. A lot of large, medium to large district have resources, have training. So reaching out to your principal, collaborating, and reaching out to your district support, whatever it look like, and tapping into those resources to make sure that you are getting the training, the support that are needed. And I think that's the key thing. Also, is doing exactly that. And as you indicated, I'm for those of you who may not be in the Broward County area, we also encourage you to jump on the county's website. You will get some ideas there, and I'm quite sure at the end, Ms. Osas will share ways you can connect with her, and she could share some of the things that she's doing, coach, mentor you to start or scale up a STEM program at your school. Talking about scaling up and STEMing, I know one of the things that you have done in your classroom that has really created a lot of excitement is the quality every quarter having that hackathon. Reflect on that and share the impact hackathons have had on students learning how to code and program.
For those that don't know, hackathon is just a coding competition where kids can come and demonstrate their learned skill and demonstrate their projects and also compete for a prize, right? So I've made it. I've turned hackathon into an experience, not just a coding competition. When they come in, most of all the programmers, the students participating, they get their gift bags, they get, pizza, snacks, and they get certificates, like recognition of being a part of that specific coding competition. So for my from my own observation, I've found the coding competition to be very motivational for a lot of my students. I think teachers underestimate competing sometimes. We don't see how empowering it could be for some of the students, because they're peers, they're classmates. And I've observed sometimes in a hackathon a student will improve in their coding and improve in their project a lot more faster within that hour, just by walking around and seeing their friends or someone else's project. And I'm like, okay, I need to step up a little bit. So I've watched that happen, and it's been amazing to see how it's impacted them. But overall, I've tried to make it an experience. So it's not about winning a gift or a prize. It's more of an experience. They get a chance to have a hackathon hangout where they can walk around and look at each other's project, maybe ask some questions about their coding, or even observe how their coding style has been to create what their competitors are making. So it's been very motivational, I think, for students, and enjoyable. A lot of times I've asked them, even if they didn't win, how was it? And it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. So we're trying to bring fun into STEM. We're trying to bring fun into coding, programming, competing. We're trying to bring fun into the classroom as well. So that's one of my goals as a computer teacher, is to really impact the students, right? Not just impact, but empower them. So just making that impact, to know that coding competitions are very fun. I think that for me has been a success, instead of being scared or terrified when it comes to competitions. It's challenging. They actually have to explain their codes to judges. They have to communicate to judges. So public speaking has kind of indirectly been a part of this process as well. It's something that they understand as a requirement. You do need to be able to not just showcase your skill, but you need to be able to communicate what you are showcasing in your own language, in your own words. So I've seen the hackathons be very impactful in students' self-esteem, in students' just achievement level, feeling that sense of achievement, like I did it, I finished it, I was able to communicate and talk to the judges, multiple judges. I was able to enjoy myself through that process. It's been very, very rewarding, I think.
That's awesome. And the key thing that I kept on hearing, it's you made it fun. It's an experience, and I think that's important, because sometimes we get caught up, teachers, in the technical skills, on who's winning per se. But you're correct. Making the STEM, the hackathon, the competition fun, making it engaging, and while they get a chance to demonstrate their skills, collaborate with their colleagues, classmates, and at the end of the day, showcase their skills. But by making it fun, like you indicated, by making it enjoyable, by making it something, that whole experience. And I heard you say the hacker hangout area, right? By creating that whole experience, and it definitely will increase and enhance kids' interest in it. I also know, a few months back you took some of your hackers or programmers,
Mm.
students, to a tech conference. And so, talk to us about the tech conference, and also talk to us a little bit about your biweekly STEM club because I know it meets every other week. So talk to us about that experience.
We got invited. We had an opportunity to go out to Tech Palooza, which is just a tech hub space where different industry tech companies come out just to kind of promote what they have going on, whether it's selling their products or just sharing information for careers, just trying to assist when it comes to other startup companies. So they were able to go in there and volunteer, which is, I think, very important for kids to be able to volunteer and still be in that space that they need to be, which is tech, STEM. They had the opportunity to take a break and kind of walk around and speak with all the different tech companies. I think it was very educational for them. They were able to ask questions. Also, they were able to share their achievements. Like, for example, three of my students out of that group had industry Microsoft information technology specialist certification for web design. So they were able to bring that and have that conversation and explore career opportunities, whether it's internships or college opportunities. So I found it very educational for them, very, very informative for them. And, it was fun. They were able to get a lot of items and products from the companies that did bring things to share. So it was fun for them to kind of pick and choose some cool tech gadgets. And I think when it comes to kids, it's always about how they feel most of the time. So if we can explore or integrate teaching and learning with how they feel, I think we'll find more success. So I know they felt excited and they were able to walk around and not just talk to a bunch of tech companies and learn from them, but they were able to choose items that they wanted, whether it was a chargers with multiple outlets or headphones and cool pens. And so I think it was fun for them.
I think to all of our listeners that is important. Imagine a national conference, and the kids not only get to volunteer, but they get to network, ask questions of engineers, and really be in that space. And I think that's important to expose students, especially minority students, black and brown students, to that because oftentimes that could be while they're having the experience in the classroom, but that could really be this what seals it that says, "Hey, I am going to go there because I just love it," and also to just see the coolest technologies because usually at those conferences, those tech conferences, companies are exposing or sharing some of their latest gadgets and being able to see, play, and at the end of the day, for free, get some of those free gadgets. I think that is an invaluable experience for the students, and thank you. Ms. Osas, for ensuring that your students get exposed to the STEM world, not only in the classroom. And I also know that based on the videos and the pictures you have, you bring, some of the coaches, I'm sure I should say some of the volunteers and judges for those hackathon or business people, because I know one of your standing partners that comes almost to every hackathon is Oracle and TechGate. But again, I think that's very important that students are exposed to the highest level, to STEM, to the tech world, to career computer science field. Most of the audience that listen to this podcast are school leaders, emerging leaders, principals, and district leaders. How can leaders create a conducive learning environment for a STEM program in their district and in their schools?
Learning environment, I think maybe less formal setting. So I am very impressed and excited with the setting that we have now in my school, my campus. Very excited with how the setting looks. It's not that typical formal setting of a classroom. It's very, very modern, very exciting, very colorful, very inviting, and it's just in general is a less formal setting. So that's when it comes to the classroom. I think having newer computers, updated softwares, faster processors, just a better proper technology that helps the students to learn and the teacher as well. Just proper technology. Yeah, and I would say providing resources, as much training as possible for the STEM teachers.
I heard you said training, updated technology, use some technical term, faster processors, and
Yeah.
for lay people that means faster computers.
Mhm.
But I think that's key for school leaders and for district to think about if you want to scale up STEM programs, technology program, computer science program in your district or schools. It is important to make the investment. It is important to ensure teachers have the PD because again, it's tough for them um, to to scale up if they don't have the actual PD.
Mhm.
Ms. Osas mentioned also less formal setting, in other words, making it more inviting. It's not your standard classroom desks, chairs, but investing and applying for grants if your district doesn't have the funding to be able to change the classroom setting. So it's not just your typical computer lab, but you scale it up to be the modernized lab, and to do so is going to require funding, and as Ms. Osas mentioned, less format, and at the end of the day, supporting your teachers. I think earlier you mentioned, Ms. Osas, making sure you have a clear vision and mission for that program, making sure whether as a teacher, if it's you who's leading it, or the school leaders, making sure that's important. Funding makes it easier to get, and nowadays there is a lot of companies, organizations that are providing funding, and I know you've gotten several, and the highest has been the recent $50,000 to really redo the entire program that you have. So thank you for sharing some of
And
those nuggets for school leaders.
just to add on to that, very important to giving providing enough technology, proper technology for the educator, right? Teachers, it starts with the teacher, and then we can see results from um, what the teacher is implementing. So, for example, for me, I have two laptops, I have a monitor, I have a recorded TV, I have access to enough proper technology, and I also have the freedom to request for what I need. So I think principals and the STEM teachers working together to make sure that the teacher has the proper technology is key. Just having two computers and a monitor, it allows me to do my work faster and just more efficient. So I would say that is very, very important.
It sounds as if your principal really supports you because you have two laptops. I heard you mention you have two computers, two laptops. You have a recordex. You have a bunch of technology to make sure that you're able to do the work you do and scale things up. And again, thank you for sharing that. And to all of our school leaders, hearing it straight from the teachers is very important. Making sure that you support your teachers and provide them with the proper technology. And as she said, to do so, you may need to go out and get additional funding, grants, partners to scale things up. Thank you for coming on the podcast today, Miss Osas. Tell everyone listening how they can connect with you.
All right. You can connect with me on Instagram, and my handle is Odds Lab. So ODSLAB underscore LLC. Odds Lab underscore LLC. You can also connect with me in LinkedIn, which is my personal page. Osas Gaius. So that'll be OSAS space GAIUS. Osas Gaius.
Thank you for coming on the podcast. And before we end, I know that Miss Osas really didn't share that much about it, but I'm going to go out and promote her business anyway. For leaders that are listening, for teachers that are listening, if you're looking to expand your business, expand, if you do anything, she's also has a business on the side where she also build websites, do a lot of technology stuff. So check out her page, check out some of the things that she does, and reach out to her or DM her where she could either guide you or use some of her services. Again, thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for joining me today. Please consider subscribing to the podcast, leave a 5-star rating and a comment. Share this episode with a friend and on social media. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for leadership ideas and tips. Again, thank you for joining me today. Until next time.